All right, hi guys. First video with bangs. Hi. So today we are talking about Captain America, who was created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. His first appearance was in his own comic book series in March of 1941. Um, his original origin is much of what we saw in his first movie, The First Avenger. After being unable to enlist due to physical problems, um, he attracted the attention of Chester Phillips, who was working on the Super Soul project named Project Rebirth. Um, though the original serum was shown as an injection due to Comic Code Authority in the 1960s, it was retconned into an oral formula. In Cap's original origin, he and Bucky were war brothers, but they didn't grow up together. Um, they actually didn't meet until after Steve's transformation. Captain America has undergone many writer changes over the years. Many writer changes over the years. Um, New storylines were introduced. Sharon Carter as Cap's love interest. Peggy Carter as Cap's love interest. In the original origins of both of those women, they were not daughter, distant niece. They were Sharon Carter was actually the younger sister of Peggy Carter. Um, More into that later. Bucky still being alive all occurred in recent history in the more recent storylines and writers of Captain America. I kind of like that they gave Bucky and Steve more of a backstory in the MCU. It feels more connected. Having them grow up together and having Bucky have kind of seen Steve go through his parents' death and having to deal with that is a lot, I think, a better storyline because it builds a better, stronger relationship with them, and it keeps us from, just believing that Steve was alone for the years after his parents died, because that's just depressing. And in the MCU, I think it carries a lot of weight, especially when when we get to the MCU version of Civil War. It had to be a strong enough motivation for Steve to turn on everybody else, and I think that War Brothers is enough, but they grew up together, and Bucky took care of Steve, and I think that's a really important thing to look at, especially when you're talking about Civil War, the part where Iron Man goes, "You're going to turn him over because it's us." I'm like, Bucky basically helped raise him, took care of him after his parents died, and then they went through war together. If you honestly think your bond with him is stronger than that, you're not paying attention. Um, Believe me, I will do a rant on Civil War in a different video. But Steve's major and important storylines in the comics. If you want a more fun one, less political one, because keep in mind, comics have always been a vehicle for political and social commentary, especially Captain America and the X-Men and even Iron Man. We'll get into that in his video. But comic books have always been political. They have always been social commentaries. So if you want your politics, if you want politics to stay out of your art, then sorry, comic books aren't it for you. Or if you have 3 brain cells and don't have the ability to grasp the deeper meaning behind what's happening, then go for it. Sorry, that was aggressive. If you want a more fun and less political one, we have Operation Rebirth, which ran through Captain America's solo issues number 444 through 448, and then it also included 450 through 454, and that ran through 1995 and 1996. If you want to get a more emotional storyline with a lot more character development for Steve, we go back to the late 80s in Under Siege, which runs in the Avengers title, number 270 through 277. I'm sure these major storylines are collected somewhere. I just know the issue numbers, so sorry if I'm making it difficult. An obvious one from one of my favorite Captain America writers, Ed Brubaker, is Winter Soldier. Captain America is Winter Soldier, and it runs through Captain America series number 1 through 9, and 11 through 14 in 2005 and 2006, and it really brings the character back to its roots with not just Bucky and their relationship, but with Steve himself, because his character has gone through so many writers. There's been a lot of tonal shifts, and there's been a lot of characterization changes that didn't necessarily agree with who the character was originally, and this really brings it back, I think. Other big ones were the Ultimates and War and Remembrance. Those are big storylines that are easy to look up. Sorry, I don't have. I mean, I can find issue numbers, but they're big storylines. So if you Google those storylines, the issues will pop up for you. He also obviously plays a major role in Civil War. What we saw on screen was very, very, very different than what happened in the comics, in the sense that there's so many more characters involved, and obviously the events didn't play out exactly as they did on screen, but Tony and Steve are still at odds, so you still get to see that tension, but you get to see who is on Steve's side and why, and then bringing the X-Men into it really gives it a whole different dynamic, because those characters are also very rich and diverse, and in their opinions and where they've stood on things, especially since the X-Men has always been kind of divisive politically. So you bring that into this storyline, and I think it adds a lot of character development and tension that I think is important to explore. If you're a fan of the storyline on screen, I would definitely dive into it in the comics. And then he also plays a major role in Avengers versus X-Men, which is just a good storyline for everyone's character development. But I mean, we know Scarlet Witch plays a major role in it, so I'm going to promo anything with her in it. I expected this to be longer. I could talk about Chris Evans for days. That makes sense. All right. So that is a very condensed, summarized version of Captain America's history. I will be continuing with the big three. The next video will be Iron Man, and the one after that will be Thor. So thanks, guys.